We are here with part 2 of First Date Tier List from a Woman's Perspective by Courtney Ryan.
Date, not the greatest. And the formal meal leads me into my next one here, which is the more informal meal. I'm thinking, a breakfast or brunch date, a cute local restaurant that's not too fancy, but still a very good atmosphere. By the way, the best way to find those places is to just go on Instagram and look at food accounts for your local city that you're in. I have found some wonderful restaurants doing that, and often places that women will like. So just something to know there. Any sort of date that revolves around a meal is going to put a lot of weight or more weight on your conversation skills, but at least you could talk about the food. As the food comes out, you can talk about it, talk about the menu. The menu gives you a little something to, hold and look at when you're first meeting each other, which I think can be helpful. But I think a more informal, cute restaurant is a much better date than a formal, fancy date. The only thing about this is that it can end up being pretty quick depending on the service, and then you have to think of what to do once you're done. Or maybe you're going your separate ways because you didn't really...
Yeah, that's one of the most important factors with all of these is how they lead into other things. It's also one of the biggest problems with the movie date, and why I absolutely agree that it's F, is it's complicated to... It's kind of a big ask to meet up with somebody, go to a movie. Usually you're going to meet up before the movie starts. So really by the time you're out of the movie and potentially going to go to another location, you're already 3 hours in and you've learned nothing about each other. You've advanced not at all. And yeah, if they're down, you could go get food afterwards, and that can kind of work, but it's also going to make the person, both people, incredibly tired. You're just sat in the dark for hours. Now you got food in your belly. You're going to be tired. It just isn't that... You need something more.
Really hit it off, or maybe there's a time constraint for one of you and you guys have to go your separate ways. But if you have this quick service and then you still want to keep hanging out, you just have to think of what to do after. But all things considered, I think a less formal first date meal, something that again is still cute. You can find so many cute restaurants on Instagram, or maybe it's even a cute little local spot that you know of that maybe not a lot of other people do.
That is a good point. That is a very good point, guys. You need a lot of times you're kind of dictating where this is going to go. Usually the choice is up to you. You're choosing what kind of date, where it is, to an extent, right? If someone's not down for it, they're not down for it, and you're probably going to have to throw out some other options. But choosing a restaurant is critical. The sort of decisions you make in the details of these different dates is absolutely critical. You should, upon getting to know this person, I presume that you're going to know something about this person before you go on the date with them. So you do need to factor in kind of what they're into, what they might like, into choosing a restaurant to go on the date to. And that's true of all of these dates. If they're into hiking, well, you don't want to go deep in the woods, but you could go for in a slightly more, woodsy area of a public park. If they're into a certain type of movie, you could watch something that's that genre of movie, right? If they're posting a lot of stuff about Halloween, it's October right now, you can probably kind of assume that maybe they're into horror, right? And with the restaurants, you should also be thinking, all right, what restaurants would be good to take somebody on a date on? Why would they be good? There's really obvious stuff that I feel like a lot of guys are probably totally overlooking, because they're just overly focused on themselves. They're overly focused on strange things that they shouldn't be focused on. One of which is the volume of the music. A lot of restaurants are going to be playing some kind of music or have some level of noise going on. You want to pick a restaurant that isn't insanely busy, that isn't like, if it's a bar, because a lot of restaurants are also bars, you don't want to choose the place where you can barely hear each other. You need to think about like the proximity that you're sitting from the person as well. That can also play a factor. If you go to a place where they're probably going to seat you in a booth or a table and you're like a decent distance away, that's something that could also make it like kind of more difficult to hear each other. You kind of got to also think about like, where do you want to sit at the restaurant? Why is that this restaurant going to be good? Do they have good food? Especially if think about this. Think about, you're choosing what you want to eat. You're looking at the menu. And maybe the woman, she's in between this and this. Well, if you've been there and you know what's good and what isn't, you can say, oh, this is really good. The such and such is really good here. You should get it.
S tier is where I'm going to put this one because I think, again, all things considered,
clearly,
you have the meal to sort of talk about as you're going. You know, does rely a little bit more heavily on your conversation skills, but I think that's important to master for a first date.
And I find that the restaurant, ideally, what I would say is you want one that's either got like, say there's you two who are on the date. You don't want a place where there's literally no other people. That would be kind of strange. And you'd almost like hear each other too much. You know, you'll hear each other's like eating noises. But you want a place where there's at least like 4 other people besides you two. I would say anywhere from 4 to like 30 people. But the best range would be like 6 to 20 people who are likely going to be there. And like she's kind of pointing out here, you need to have another location set. It's very uncommon that people go on a date and just like get dinner and then leave. Like that can't really be the plan, you know? That ain't gonna go well. And if you go on a date with somebody and they want to dip after like one part of the date, they don't want to do the second part, and unless there's an incredibly legitimate reason, you probably should just ghost them, because they clearly didn't want to like continue the date with you. So just on to the next. It's a big world. There's a lot of fish in the sea. Just move on, because you're just always going to be safer to assume in those situations that they're just not interested in you, which is totally fine.
Pace being set with your drinks coming out, if you get appetizers, your meal, dessert, I don't know, whatever you're doing, whatever your budget is, however much you want to spend. But I think somewhere informal is not going to be as expensive, but can still be a really wonderful atmosphere for you guys to talk and get to know each other and have a lovely time. So all things considered, I'm putting that in S tier. Let it also be known, when I say an informal meal, I'm still talking about somewhere where you're sitting down and enjoying a meal together, not fast food. Not fast food. I'm not even putting that on this first date tier list. I don't even want to go there, but that is not.
Well, like I was saying with dates going from one location to another, like fast food should probably never be the plan, but it can be a part of the plan. Like sometimes it kind of has to be. Say the part of town you're in, for example. Say you do one quick thing, then you go to a mall. Well, a mall is going to have like fast food places within it. So it's kind of logical to eat fast food. And if you go to a movie theater, after the movie theater, if you want to keep hanging out, you basically have some pretty limited options. Now, ideally, and it kind of depends on like where you live, because like I'm saying, you don't want to go to a place that's too crowded. And there's places, if you can go to like a bar that has a restaurant, that isn't going to be super crowded when you go there after a movie, you can. But fast food is like a decent option, right? Because let's say like a lot of the sort of more regular restaurants are closed besides the bars. If the bars are going to be flooded with people, you could go to a fast food place and actually eat inside of the place. Especially if there's not like a typically there's not going to be a lot of people eating inside of a fast food place at night unless you live in like a big city. So it can work, but it should be like a fallback plan. It's plan B.
Not what I'm talking about.
Plan Burger King.
Informal meal. Next we have a family function. A wedding,
oh God,
a family
what?
dinner, some event. I don't know. Do not bring a girl as a plus one to something on your first date, and I stand by that. Your first date should be just the two of you, not your whole family sitting around a table asking you when you're getting married on your first date, okay? I'm just going to go ahead and put any sort of family function in F tier.
That's fair. There's just so much uncontrolled variables. No good. No good at all.
This is such a strange...
I mean, it could be okay. It kind of depends on how you function in your family functions. Are you the relative that stays for an hour and leaves? Like, you could do something like that. Like, you stay for an hour or two and then go do something else. But you have to kind of incorporate that in the planning of the date. And then it could work, but even then you have so much variables. Whose family is like, consistent enough with family functions to where you could control for weird interactions that happen at family functions.
Thing, and I actually had a friend who went on a first date with a girl, and she brought her mom.
What?
Yes, it is as weird as it sounds. She brought her mom with her on the first date. This was actually a friend of my husband's, but he ended up paying for the girl and her mom on the first date.
Here's the big secret about women.
That's insane.
We want you to flirt with us.
Of course you do.
With us. Design.
Say it didn't go anywhere, but I just think any sort of family function on a first date is so incredibly strange. Again, it should just be the two of you getting to know each other and seeing if you're compatible, and that's probably pretty difficult to do with your entire family surrounding you. Or I have to think it is. So strange to me. F tier. Next we have some sort of guided exhibit. I'm thinking a museum, an art gallery, a botanical garden, a zoo, the aquarium. What I'm really thinking here is somewhere that you guys can go and have things to look at while you're on the date. It's sort of this like...
That would be pretty cool. I find that museums are a little stuffy, but like an aquarium would be sick. Would be real sick. Because it's not like museums are typically, you have to like read something, you have to like kind of focus on what you're looking at about something. Whereas an aquarium, it's just cool stuff. They're just cool fishies. There's turtles and sharks and awesome stuff to look at. So it really lends itself to conversation in a way that a museum doesn't.
Like guided experience. With some of these things, you can create your own path and go whichever way you want, but you have things around you to lead you through the experience. And I think this is a phenomenal date. One, because it gives you things to talk about. If you're someone who struggles with conversation or keeping the conversation flowing, what to talk about next, you are always going to have something to talk about if you go somewhere like this because you're surrounded by talking points. But also you can talk about completely other things than just the atmosphere that you're in. You could go to the zoo and have a look.
I guess it depends on the type of museum. Like a small museum where there just isn't going to be a ton of other people, that can work really well because, yeah, there's going to be stuff to talk about everywhere. Certain other, like, larger museums can be very stuffy and it'd be, like, awkward to be deep in a conversation. You'd kind of be, like, you'd have to be, like, standing around and you'd feel like you're in people's way.
Lovely conversation about something more meaningful and deep to both of you. I think this category in general, which again could include a ton of different things depending on you and what your date is into. If you both really love animals, maybe going to the zoo or the aquarium is a fabulous option. If you're both really into history, maybe you go to the history museum.
Even zoos also would run into a problem that you would have at certain like large museums, and maybe even an amusement park, I think, could majorly have this problem where you're just simply walking too much. There is too much walking required. You're getting tired, your feet are hurting, you're in search for like hydration, just things you don't really want to be dealing with on a first date.
Again, tons of different things could be included in this category, but I think this is one of the best first dates ever. So I'm going to put that in S tier. You can
No. Not at all. No. A tier. Low A tier. Below coffee.
go at your own pace. You can stay as long as you wish. It's usually pretty affordable to get into these kind of places. So wonderful first date, in my opinion. Next up, we have one that is not so great, which is your house. I think it is always better for a first date or the first time you're meeting.
Another thing about museums and such is that you often have little kids going around. Like, it just isn't... it's just not really the vibe, the environment you really want.
To meet in a public setting, I would never, ever go to a guy's place for the first date because I watch and listen to way too many crime shows for that. Also, if anything in the world is going to be considered low effort, it is just asking a girl to come over to your house. And I know some of you might be thinking, well, what if I wanted to cook for her on the first date? Again, I think from a woman's perspective here, it is a safety thing. I just would not feel safe meeting up with someone at their house that I just met online. Could be different, again, if you already knew this person. Maybe you've seen each other before. Maybe you have a mutual friend and you already know each other. Maybe you have a class together, you already know each other. But if you're meeting this person for the first time, I would seriously recommend going to a public setting. You want to make a woman feel comfortable and safe and secure, and asking her to come over to your house on a first date, I just wouldn't recommend it if you want to leave a good first impression and you don't want to come across as a low effort guy who just wants to Netflix and chill.
I totally disagree. If that's what you want to come across as, that's fine. That's going to, like, a lot of women are going to find that very attractive. And you putting in low effort, oftentimes women are going to be like, yeah, this guy doesn't have to put in effort and he knows it. And it's, yeah, I like the home first date. If anything, I as somebody who owns a house, I would be worried, like, hey, is this woman totally insane? Is she gonna, like, try to steal from my house? I'm more worried about my house than I am of the other person's safety, but that's because I'm not, like, a violent person who's gonna harm anybody. But you never know, right? You never know if they're going to, like, harm you. Maybe they're going to roll up, like, 8 people into your house and, like, invade your house and rob you or something crazy. I don't know. But yeah, I don't know. I've had plenty of good first dates where it's just, like, where... Oftentimes it's where women don't really... You suggest a few options to them. Like going and getting coffee, going and getting food, go bowling, see a movie. Where usually it's where you're talking or where you already know each other through school or whatever it may be. And you already kind of, like, know each other. And you just want to... start dating. You just want to get to it. You want to, like, cut the BS and just get right to getting to know each other on a deeper level and just kind of, like, chilling together. Just a really chill, low pressure, low effort scenario. And like, you've already built that attraction. You've already gotten to know each other pretty good. So you don't really need the first date. You just go right to the hey, we're into each other, we're comfortable. Like a lot of the pressure of the first date is just gone. It's just kind of a different it's kind of like a different category. Like you almost can't even put it on the list because of the context that it actually exists in, which is those scenarios where they already know you, they're comfortable with you, you've already like pretty well established that you're attracted to each other and you're going to be going on probably a couple dates together.
Again,
But to be fair, I've literally, I guess I have like gone on dates where either they're hanging out at my place or I'm hanging out at their place and we don't know each other. Like that's not necessarily established. And it's also like I've done that and it's gone well. Or like the home, hanging out at one of our places is like the core portion of the date, but maybe it starts with we meet and get coffee and then hang out at one of our places, or we meet and have a meal or go for a walk and then it leads to one of our places. So it's kind of good, not gonna lie. It allows you to control for a lot of variables and kind of like, I don't know, it allows you to control the setting and be more comfortable. And I'm not seeing the issue here.
woman's perspective, would never, ever, ever go to a man's house on a first date. I don't care if he's a celebrity. I don't care if he's someone that I met in a coffee shop. Wouldn't do it. You also want to leave a little room for mystery and imagination. I think this is okay maybe a couple dates in. Once you've gotten to know this girl a little bit better, you can invite her over, maybe cook together or cook for her. I think that can be really cute, but I would really strongly recommend waiting until a few dates in for this. So again.
Well, it kind of depends. I mostly agree with that statement. You want to leave room for mystery. That's actually a really important part, men, is that you do specifically that. But you can do that unless your place is like a small one-bedroom apartment, something that somebody could see everything there in a matter of like 10 minutes. Then yeah, there's not going to be any mystery to like your existence in a lot of ways, typically. Whereas if you like I would say my place, for example, it's just increasing that mystery. Because granted, I've got some really like interesting things in my house that usually there's like 3 rooms in my house. Living room. There's another living room in the basement that in my old videos you could see behind me. I think you could see like a flat screen and stuff and like the back of a couch. And there's also like a bar in the basement as well. There's like a bar area. There in this living room that's over there, not that you can tell what over there really means, but to my left there is a living room. And there's stuff in it. Posters. There's things that are going to lead to conversations. And there's also like I got 3 bedrooms. And one of the bedrooms, you're going to be like, anytime somebody sees it, they are going to be excited and intrigued. And it's just going to add like more mystery, because it's going to make people think like, oh, how'd you collect this cool stuff? Like, what got you into collecting this cool stuff? How much stuff do you actually have? Because you can't even like look at it all in one visit.
I'm going to put inviting a woman to your house for a first date in F tier. And if you're
Nope. I could not disagree more. She placed it in F tier. So far, movie date, family function. Family function has some like you can't control the variables, but the variables can very heavily sway in your favor. It's just unlikely that would happen. But your house, your place, I gotta go like B tier. Like I think it's actually really good, and it kind of shows like a level of comfort. You're right that you want to keep mystery, but you don't have to like reveal everything about who you are and your personality by somebody just seeing your place. You want to have a clean place. You want to have a nice place. You want to have a place that the woman feels like comfortable in, for sure. But it's a great thing because it kind of shows like, hey, I'm willing to put myself out there. This is who I am. I got nothing to hide. I think women find that intriguing in reality.
Into your house for a first date in F tier. And if you're...
We'll stop it there. That's part 2. I think I'll save reacting to the rest of this video for another day. We'll go through these other date ideas and talk about them. This is interesting stuff because I think that men, as being the ones who ask out, you also should kind of most of the time be asking somebody out in a way that incorporates what their interests are. And usually a woman will express what activity she might want to do on a first date. You need to incorporate that, but a lot of the times you're going to be kind of the leader. You're going to be either choosing outright or suggesting what you're going to be doing. And so that gives the man actually a lot of sway in how the date is likely to go. And thinking of all of the little details is going to help you tremendously. For example, you could even live in a place technically that has multiple movie theaters. Which movie theater are you going to go to? And then there's infinitely more variables to control for. A lot of these activities you can do at your place. You can watch a movie and have a movie going experience, which is enormously superior, can be enormously superior to a movie theater, where you can pause, you can talk over a movie. You can choose to completely ignore a movie. That's kind of what Netflix and chill is. Like, let's not forget that the chill part, let's say that's the hooking up, is preceded by the Netflix part. So it involves popping something on Netflix and minutes into it, starting to make some moves and starting to get down, right? That's a key part. That's a very key part. It's an insignificant part oftentimes, but it is a part. And I think limiting potential disastrous variables is important. It's not the most important thing, and you can't eliminate all variables. Sometimes a date is just a disaster. I've had that, and I've had that where it resulted in a relationship. I worry kind of when I make these videos and I talk about these topics that the viewers are going to overanalyze. I myself am somebody with anxiety. I overthink things. I can be incredibly analytical and overly into certain things. But within that, it actually makes me more comfortable. It gives me less anxiety to experience the anxiety and the focus that I have on things. Now, so much of life, there's things you can't control. So much in dating you can't control. When you get to know somebody, sometimes they hide who they are. They don't reveal who they are right away. Sometimes you have perceptions of somebody that end up not being what they really are. You assume positive things about them, and maybe you shouldn't have. There's always going to be huge unknowns and obstacles in dating and relationships that are it's inevitably going to happen, right? So you have to be able to fully accept that you can't control all situations. You can't control how everything's going to go. But controlling what you can, it's not control almost sounds like a bad word, but it's just maybe just preparing for, having a little bit of anticipation of what might happen is going to help tremendously. Right? Like I mentioned, going on a date with a woman, going for a walk in the park, and then swimming. I knew that date was going to go great. I know most dates I ever go on are going to go great, but that one in particular, I knew that I was going to have a blast. And that's kind of a key part. Like a huge thing I emphasize in these videos is being fun and being funny. Being fun, a huge part is just your own existence, choosing happiness, choosing to be a fun person who likes to have fun. So you can choose things where you're going to have a good time. I've gone on dates with women where we watched a movie that I knew was going to be good, and maybe she would like it, maybe she won't. And even if she didn't, I enjoyed it. That's just what it is, you know? You got to make yourself as comfortable as possible. And for me personally, the kind of person I am, I like to eliminate the variables. So like I said, one of my go-tos is the coffee date. Ask a girl for coffee and get to know her, listen to her, find out who she is, and let her get to know you. Tell some stories about your life, your childhood, your family, your interests, your hobbies, your goals. There's so much to talk about. There's so much that can make a date a fantastic date, that it'd be crazy to not choose something like a casual dinner, a walk, a cup of coffee. And I don't even drink coffee. That it's just like stepping into the deep end where all of the water is positive stuff. Or maybe that's a really bad... I'm trying to think of some way to phrase this to where it makes sense. I know that I am going to learn about somebody. Like if I go on a coffee date with somebody, I know I'm going to learn about them. I'm going to learn about their interests, their hobbies, their opinions, their goals, their life, their experiences. And they're going to learn about mine. And they're going to have a good time, and I'm going to have a good time. I will have enjoyed getting to know them. Even if there's somebody who I disagree with on everything. Even if there's somebody who tons of red flags pop up and multiple deal breakers. Guess what? I had a good time and I got to know them. Because I choose to have a good time with life and with people and experiences. And nothing is ever going to go perfectly. So allow for control for crappy variables, but allow for an infinite amount of good variables. I go in on a date sometimes, and I know like almost nothing about the person, like especially if it's off a dating app. I know they like this and this and this. They like this and this, and well, they had a picture with their mom in their profile or something, you know, so they have a family. And even so many times it doesn't even matter to me, because I'm gonna get to know those things about them. They must have a family of some kind. They must have experiences of some kind, opinions about something, interests in something. I'm going to get to know a little bit about them, and I'm going to enjoy it. And they're going to have a good time, and we're going to have good banter, and we're going to laugh, we're going to joke, we're going to chill. It's going to be great. And it almost always is in my dating experience. And yeah, within that, I avoid topics. I'm not like, hey, what religion are you? What do you feel about whatever religion? What do you think about like God and spirituality? What do you think about, you know, this politician or this election or this political figure? I'll talk about current events and pop culture and stuff that I like and that I don't like, but I'm going to try to avoid topics. Or even if they come up, it's also important to have something to say about politics, about religion, but have something to say that's totally neutral. You can literally say what people like you, typically what their political leanings are, right? Like, I live in Canada, and I'm a card-carrying Native American. I know I don't look it. I know I'm incredibly pale. I'm one of the palest Native Americans in the world. But, so here in Canada, one political party called the NDP, they look out for the interests of Native Americans. And so a lot of Native Americans vote for the NDP. And if politics comes up, I can literally talk about it and just be like, well, Native people typically vote NDP because they actually they try to help Native people, whereas these other parties don't really do a lot. They'll give billions of dollars to Ukraine to blow up Russians, but they won't spend the money to give the reservations that don't have clean tap water. So until they start doing stuff like that, I won't be voting for them. And I could say stuff like, hey, and this is just what I honestly believe too. I could never I'm never voting for someone named Trudeau, because a former prime minister, Pierre Trudeau, I strongly disagree with things that he proposed to do to Native people, or things that like the Liberal Party of Canada has done to Native American people. Never gonna vote for that party. In a million years, it would never happen. So that's kind of a way you can talk about politics. You have something to say, so you don't sound like a total idiot in case they bring it up, or it like comes up naturally. Maybe you're at a restaurant and a television is playing, or you're at somewhere and you come across the political poster and the topic just comes up naturally. You want to actually be able to give an opinion, but kind of separate it from your own personal beliefs, or at least group it in with other people. And don't get into this like choosing sides stuff. Same with religion. Say, yeah, I believe there's a God, but I don't know. I don't think he's like I don't think he created people to make some weird purity test where you need to decipher which religion is the truest and then dedicate your life to worshiping him through some cryptic book that was written a really long time ago and doesn't thoroughly explain the most proper and effective way to worship him. I just don't think that life is some weird purity test. Sure, there's something probably created us, but I don't think it wants us to blindly worship it. I don't see why something that's a literal God would see any value in that. That just doesn't make any sense to me. But sure, something created us. That kind of makes sense to me. Stuff like that, like keep it vague, keep it breezy, and keep it moving on to the next topic. And yeah, like if your place, you also need to strongly consider your place, because that is the final destination of a lot of first dates. Is it ending up at the place of either you or the person you're on a date with? Let's call a spade a spade. I talked about this in other videos. Hey, sometimes people want to hang out. A date goes well, they want to hang out, they want to make out, they want to hang out, they want to do more than make out. Happens all the time, right? And it's totally fine. So guess what, guys and girls? You need to be prepared for that happening. You need to be prepared. If you're a reasonable person, a logical person, be prepared for maybe your date is going to end up checking out your place. Maybe they want to hang out with you more, and maybe they want to hang out with you as much as they can that night. And guess what? It's closing in on midnight, and anything you might want to do is closed down. So we're hanging out and we're doing whatever. That means they're going to be at your place. You know, so make sure your place is clean and tidy. And if you're into any kind of, if you do have some weirdly strong beliefs, put it away. Put that stuff away. Just a tip. Just helping a brother out here. Yeah. And fully be prepared. Right? Like, you got to think. Person's probably going to use your bathroom. They might even use your bedroom. So be prepared for that. Have clean sheets. Clean pillowcases. Make your bed. That's a crazy one. That's one that I would be shocked if there's guys out there that don't do that. Like, I got a king size bed. And guess what? If I'm going on a date with a woman, if it's a first date, a second date, a third date, unless she's been in my bed before, I am making that bed, because that is a big old bed, and making it with the blanket on top, it looks irresistible. It looks like, oh my God, I want to be in that bed. That looks so big and so comfy. I needs to be in that bed. So if my date goes well and it ends up at my house, I'm going to show her around my house. I'm going to give her a spin, give her a whirl, give her a tour of my house. And she's going to see some cool stuff. And she's probably going to see that bed. And she's going to be like, damn, that's a nice bed. Like, why? Explain to me, anyone out there, why you wouldn't want that. Why you wouldn't want somebody, your date, even if you don't hook up with them. Don't, like, what could possibly be the harm in them wanting, at least, to be in that bed of yours, even if they don't. Them wanting to do that. Being like, damn, that bed is wildly inviting. You want them to feel that way, don't you? So, put in effort, plan. Don't put pressure on yourself. Just be prepared for things to go well. And make it so things don't go wrong. That's what I mean by like controlling for variables. Just avoid the dumb stuff that can happen on dates. The things that can lead to disaster, to dates just tanking. Just so I'll react to the rest of this another day. This is part 2. We got a bit to go through. We're about halfway through the video, and I'm interested to see what other ones are on there. If I go to here in the video, oh, I hate that. It shows like a tiny right there.
All I know is it's going in the.
We got like a baseball game, sporting event. I'm assuming this is a shopping mall, which I mentioned. There's a amusement park. There's a bar. This must be a bar. There are people high-fiving weirdly. The gym. Do people go to the gym on a first date? That's crazy. Jeez, talk about like... Hopefully that's a category of like just a general specific specialized interest. I like, hey, we're both into this thing a lot, so let's do our special interest specific date. Cause going to the gym, oh my god, that just sounds so awful to me on every angle. Like I both the man and the woman, I'd be like, ugh. Any end of it, I'd be like, oh god, just get a personality. Jeez. Stand-up comedy show. And then, I don't know if this is dancing over here or concert. It's probably dancing. Then there's this guy, and he's got like a bowl. Is he gonna like barbecue? Like, what's he, just a backyard? What kind of backyard barbecue isn't a family event to some extent? Is it like a company picnic? And then there's a hike. To me, a hike is like a subcategory of walk, and it has all the strengths and weaknesses of a walk. I feel like she's just gonna also dislike it probably even more than just the walk, because it like is specifically in less public areas. I don't know. We'll go through it when we go through it. Peace out.